I got to tell you, I got a bit of a crazy one here, a kooky one.
Hit me, Nicholas.
I don't want to build it up, but I need some good smelling stuff because last night I'm here. It's Sunday. I was up at my parents' house for 1 week. Then I was in Burlington for 5 days. Then went back to my parents' house to bring in the new year. Stayed for New Year's Day to watch the college football games, which was fun. And then finally came back on a Saturday, which, is there anything better? I don't even know if you've ever experienced this. Coming back on a Saturday is so nice. Because when you're gone for a long time, you come back on a Sunday and you have that thing of like, tomorrow I gotta fucking I gotta re-register for school, I gotta paint the walls, I gotta do a podcast. Nice to come back on a Saturday because you can dip your toes in, get a couple emails, but it's still Saturday, and then Sunday to kind of chill. So it was quite lovely.
That is nice, and there's no traffic.
Exactly. So Sunday afternoon, we hang out. I'm watching football. Sarah's doing whatever women do when they're alone. And
I think knit, cook.
Maybe, yeah. I think she did both of those things.
Yeah, pillow fight alone.
So I'm sitting here. It's Sunday evening. We have the office downstairs, and she goes, I'm going to go work downstairs. And I'm like, great, I'll watch some football. She comes back 5 minutes later, and I just hear, Joe, which... She never calls me Joe, like normally it's like, hey, fuckface, bad teeth, loose
N-word.
Asshole. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right.
So when you hear that name, I mean, how often does your girlfriend call you Mark?
Very rarely. It's like when your mom says your full name, you're like, uh-oh, she must have found my porn.
Exactly. It sounds weird even hearing it. So she's like, she opens the door and it's like, Joe. And then I'm like, God. Oh my God, are there nudes of her cousin down there? Did she find my dildo? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
There's that long pause, and she's like, I think we got a problem here. Like, it was like Hanks in Apollo 13. And I'm like, what is it? She's like, we have a serious situation downstairs. You got to get down here.
What is so vague?
She's like, put on shoes, get a mask.
Shoes? A mask?
I'm like, what the fuck? And she's like, we got a serious plumbing problem. And I'm like, oh my God. And earlier, I was in our upstairs bathroom, and while I'm sitting there taking a big shit, I hear like water. In New York, you can just hear everybody's plumbing.
Oh, yeah.
So I hear water from upstairs, and all of a sudden I hear a sink gurgle. Like a
Ooh.
Hate a sink gurgle.
Not a good gurgle.
That's a bad gurgle. So I go, all right, it's just a gurg, nothing crazy, but something feels a little off.
Give it a gurg.
Earlier, I was downstairs, and I used the downstairs bathroom for a minute. I just peed, flushed the toilet. When I picked up the toilet, the bottom part of the seat was soaking wet, and there was no water in the toilet bowl. So I'm like,
interesting.
This is fishy.
Yes.
It felt like all the water sprayed up onto the bowl. I was like, something's a little awry here.
Kooky.
So I put on my shoes, I go downstairs, and as soon as I leave my apartment, it smells a little low-tidey, we'll say.
I got you.
I get downstairs, it's a basement apartment, there's a puddle all the way, and little shit pieces and boogers and like cigarette butts, and I'm like, oh, this is bad. And she's like, that's nothing.
Uh-oh,
and so I'm
nothing.
like, half an inch of water is nothing? Walk into our apartment, across the rug, into the downstairs bathroom. Somehow, the toilet's it's all pipes, Jerry. The pipes got backed up. Our shits exploded up out of the shower drain. Like it blew the top off the shower drain. I wish I could have seen the sight. There was shit, like human shit, piles, logs, diarrhea, little fucking poopsicles, Cocoa Puffs, all over the shower. It was like a Tarantino movie, but brown instead of red. It was crazy, like a mushroom cloud of dumps, fresh dumps.
Wow, what the hell happened? Is this from the spinach and the chipotle and the silent re?
I don't think it's me. I think it's the whole building. We hadn't been home in 10 days.
Good point.
But we had both just taken fresh shits, like one on top of the other, like little classic battle shit. She's like, I just took a shit. And I'm like, I got to take a shit. And we took 2 shits and flushed, and I think they went straight down the pipe and up out of the shower. And there was shit on the walls, covering the floor. I mean, it blew the top off the drain. I've never even heard of this before.
This is like something out of Saw.
I mean, you should have saw it. I almost threw up. I was gagging, and I had the mask on because not for COVID, but for smell.
Sure.
And I'm just lighting matches like fucking Donald Sutherland in Backdraft. I'm trying to get rid of the smell. I'm lighting incense on fire. We had to call the landlord, and this is where people are like, you're an asshole if you rent. You got to own. It's throwing money away if you rent. But this is where renting is good. I called the landlord. It's Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. He's got one eye open. I'm like, we got a serious problem. He's like, I'll come over there. And I had to wait outside the door and be like, stop, whatever you're thinking, it's worse. And I'm like, I feel so embarrassed and ashamed. I'm like, our bowel movements are like all over the floor. Like, you have to warn them. And now the feeling of someone else seeing your shit, it's like so intimate.
So intimate. It's violating. It's the same with like a lady tampon. I think that's very private.
I agree, but I'm like, a tampon for me is just blood. So it could be a pricked finger or just a murder or a child rape or something. But this is like, there's seeds and rice in there. Just horrific. And this poor guy has to clean it. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, the shit burst, and he calls a plumber, and they're like, "They'll be there in 3 hours." Literally, that's not even an exaggeration. They're like, "They'll be here in 3 hours." And I'm
that's
like,
pretty quick for a plumber.
I guess so. It's an emergency plumber. 3 hours. I'm like, I could go to a Springsteen show. I could watch Braveheart again. 3 hours
right.
to have shit all over your house. So this is where it's nice to rent. We sat in the living room watching the Bee Gees doc while he scooped our shit off of our couch.
He watched the Bee Gees. He's watching the feces.
the BEMs. That doesn't rhyme. But so finally, the plumber comes, the landlord comes. He kept ringing the doorbell, being like, we're working on it. But then the smell was so bad, it was coming up through. Like, we could smell it upstairs. The whole building stunk. And then like everyone else, all the other tenants are like poking their heads up, being like, what's going on? And you feel like it's not us. I swear to God.
My shit's not in the shower. Don't worry. Keep moving.
just close the door and get the fuck out of here.
Get yourself a cup of coffee, sister.
But yeah, it's all cleaned up, safe and sound. Our shower has never looked better, and all good. But man, I'm not a weak stomach guy. I love horror and drama. But man, seeing a bunch of just thinking about it, I could throw up right now, and I apologize to the squeamish fans.
No, I mean, that's appalling. That's horrific. I'm so glad you got a hell of a super. I could see a guy going, I'm not answering this one. We had you've seen my apartment. We're paying a pretty penny over here, and I've never had this before. My old super, I never met him, never talked to him, never seen him. But this guy, we had a drip, and it was just dripping down. And I was like, well, let me tell the super. I don't care about a drip. I don't want to be high maintenance, but I'll just tell him. And he comes in, he looks at it, he goes, shit, the whole ceiling's got to come out. So they spent days with like this crew and contractors, and they took the whole ceiling out. They changed a bunch of pipes. It took forever. It had Duvetine everywhere, and dust was coming out of there. And I was like, this is amazing that they just did this from a drip. My old guy would have been like, hey, you can't live with a drip, you wuss, get out of here.
I've had bad landlords and good landlords, and this landlord is the best I've ever had. He's like the nicest guy ever. He's always here painting something and fixing something. Couldn't be nicer. Gave us a discount at the beginning of COVID. And there's nothing I'm more grateful for than how nice my apartment is, how nice my landlord is.
Now here's the big questione. Do you tip the guy at Christmas?
A landlord? I've never even heard of that. Should I?
A super.
Well, there's no super. He just does the shit. The super is how we got that downstairs. There used to be one, and then he left, and we took that apartment.
Oh, so there's no soup.
No soup for you. Come back 1 year.
Forget it. Let it go.